Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I wanted to do a quick book recommendation, and I have reviewed this author's books before and I highly recommend them. So today's book is How to Wake Up, a Buddhist inspired guide to navigating joy and sorrow by Toni Berhard. So if her name sounds familiar to those of you that are chronically ill, she's also chronically ill, but she wrote the books How to Be Sick and How to Live Well with Chronic Pain and Illness. And when I say that these books were game changers for me when it comes to my outlook on my chronic illness and what life becomes after you become chronically ill, these books are just incredible to help you through chronic illness, especially if you are kind of at the beginning. So this book was basically in response to people that were writing to her and saying, I'm not chronically ill, but I really like your writing. She said that she was getting lots of letters from people that were actually not sick. And so she decided to basically write a version of her other books that was just for, an everyday non-chronically ill person. So this book, if you are chronically ill, I would recommend her other books for you instead. How to Be Sick, I think, was her very first book. And I think How to Live Well was her third book. This one, I think, came in between. And it has a lot of the same material, except it's just more general. It's not specific to chronic illness, because the other books, she does make them a little bit more specific to chronic illness, chronic pain, that kind of thing. So she will sort of modify some of the exercises, and she has exercises in this book as well. But in the other books, she sort of modifies them to focus on, like, say, pain. If you have pain, do this exercise. If you have, negative thoughts in relation to the things that you cannot physically do anymore, do this other exercise. So it's almost like just the wording is a bit different in the other books because she's appealing and speaking directly to people who suffer with chronic illness, chronic pain, or some type of chronic ongoing condition, and also limitations. Your those of us who are sick are limited in the things we can do, and that causes suffering for us. So a lot of those exercises, have been adapted for someone who is unable to, say, be with their family or participate in holiday stuff or birthdays and things like that. So she does really speak to the audience of chronically ill people in her other books. So this one is basically, if you are not chronically ill, has a lot of the same exercises, but they're just, she just describes them in a more general manner. More of it, I feel like this book is more focused on the mental suffering. Obviously, people with chronic illness have mental suffering as well, but we have mental and physical suffering. I'm not saying that, healthy people don't have physical suffering, but we have that added, ongoing chronic physical suffering. But this book does seem to focus more on the mental. A lot of it is like, if you're jealous that someone else got something that you wish you had, do this exercise. She speaks more to just regular people that, have a job, people that have their, families, people that are just kind of going through their everyday lives, but are still struggling in a way, because of what they want, because of their desires of having certain things. And she does talk a lot about that in all of her books, desire, desire being the root of suffering, and sort of what to do in order to, I guess, not allow that to hurt you. So this book is actually, this would be like a good intro to her other books. It's not that big, so it's pretty thin here. And I think How to Be Sick is also small. How to Live Well, I think, is the one that is a little bit bigger. I know there's one of them that is a little bit thicker. And if you want to see reviews of the other books, I have, I think, a book review playlist. And they should both be in there because I do have the other two books, and I'm pretty sure I've already talked about them on this channel. I have to do another updated video talking about those books though, because they are just so, so good, especially for chronically ill people, because they were written for chronically ill people. And I'm not saying that this book wouldn't be good for you if you're chronically ill. It still applies. It's still really good at describing things, giving you the exercises. You know, and a lot of it was familiar to me because I had already read her other books. But if you haven't read her other books, this would still be a good intro to it. It would be a good way to see how regular, everyday people that aren't chronically ill can apply these teachings, you know, Buddhist teachings. By the way, that's one thing that I didn't mention. So Toni Berhard, she's actually she was a law professor at, I think at UC Berkeley. I know she was a law professor, and I think it was there. And she became sick on a trip overseas, and then she never stopped being sick. So she's been chronically ill for a long time. She has ME/CFS, and you know, she's written all of these books while she was sick. But before she got sick and while she was a law professor, she was also like a practicing, I don't know if she was Buddhist or she was just someone that was really I think she was a practicing Buddhist. And she was really into it, and she, you know, she really was read on all of the teachings of Buddhism and, you know, meditation techniques and things like that. And when she became chronically ill, she was kind of like it just all went out the window. And she thought to herself, that's so strange. You know, after several years of suffering, she was like, why did I do that? Because in those teachings that she had followed for years, there was there was something there for her to help her suffering, and to sort of maybe even ease her suffering at the loss of her life, because she had to stop working. She tried to work part-time as a law professor, couldn't do that, eventually became mostly housebound, literally working from her bed, and doing that, working from her bed, writing these books, because she had to stop teaching altogether. So it's really it's really interesting. She makes, and for those of you that are like, oh, Buddhism is really like woo woo, it's really out there, she makes it pretty accessible. I like the way that she simplifies it for you. She does use some Buddhist terminology, but she does simplify it and kind of translate it into what we can understand, and says, oh, you know, this word means like desire, you know. So she uses the Buddhist word, but doesn't, you know, go through the whole, you know, Buddhist philosophy of it. She just, you know, makes it accessible and easy to understand and easy to apply for the everyday person. So that's what I really like. I like that she makes it so easy. She gives you examples of, you know, of the different things, like when when you're jealous of someone and you desire to have what they have, she'll give you an example of, like, you know, from her own life, like, oh, you know, her husband and daughter went on a trip to New York, and instead of being happy for them, she felt this like pang of jealousy and like wishing that she could have gone with them. And she tells you what that's called, you know, in Buddhist teachings, and then what type of exercise to do in order to ease that suffering of wanting. So it is very interesting. I love all her books. I wanted to get this one. I know that the other two books are specifically for chronically ill people, but I still wanted to have the third one. I wanted to complete the collection of books because she's just so great, and reading her books was a game changer for me, because at the very beginning, you know, not at the very beginning of my illness, because that was like 18 years ago, but 10 years ago, I became fully disabled. And I was seeing, you know, my doctor for the first time, and I had all of these things that she wanted me to do. And I was freaking out because I didn't, I was like, how am I going to afford this? How am I going to do this? Like, it's so much stuff to do, and I'm sick and all of, you know. And when you read her books, she sort of teaches you how to kind of take it one moment at a time. And if you guys might see on my playlist as well, there's something called the DBT therapy workbook. And some of the exercises do kind of overlap between dialectical behavior therapy and what she teaches, or what she's taken from Buddhist teachings. So I can see how that works, because DBT is also helpful for people that are in extreme despair. And if you want to know more about that book, check my playlist of book reviews. The author actually of that book, of the DBT book, commented on my video. It's a very helpful book. I have to do another video of my highly recommended books, all of the books that I think can get you through some of the toughest times of chronic illness. But Toni Berhard is one of the best for me, especially because the book is so simple. The exercises are so simple, and obviously this book is for everybody, but in the books specific to chronic illness, she even sort of modifies the exercises and says, if you can't, sit in a position, lay this way, because she understands that many of us, she might have MECFS and has no issue maybe sitting down, but she understands that there are tons of different types of chronic illnesses, and some of us may have chronic pain, some of us may not be able to sit, some of us may not be able to lay down a certain way. So she does acknowledge that, and she's very careful about that. And she also does let you know if a specific exercise, for example, there's something called death awareness practice, and she also covers that in this book. She will tell you, like, if you don't feel ready for that, don't do it. So she will tell you if certain exercises may not be a good idea given your current mental state or your physical state. So you get this sense of gentleness with Toni Berhard in her books, a sense of being gentle and easing into, an exercise, and or easing into a teaching and an exercise. She doesn't come at you with aggression, or I don't know. There's just there's a lot of ease with her books. The DBT book is really good, but it actually does have exercises. It has exercises, it has worksheets, it has like very specific, like you do have to do a lot more work, like actual writing, actual kind of structuring your thoughts, which is really good. And some of us work better in that way. But Toni Berhard is just more like easy, reciting mantras, not like Om or anything like that, but actual sentences, saying things, like wishing well on someone. She actually gives you phrases to use. And so I like that. I like that it's just very simple, nothing complicated. You don't have to take out a notebook and start writing things down unless you want to. But there's just such an ease with her books and with her writing. And again, like I said, they're not very big. So if you have difficulty reading, for large periods at a time, I'm not even done with this book, and it's not really that long. But it's it's pretty simple, and you've got your you can put your little sticky notes. She's got different chapters that it's divided pretty well. She has a chapter on death awareness practices, so that once you get to that chapter, if you don't want to read that, you can skip over it. You're not really going to miss out on anything else. So highly recommend. This book is good if you don't have a chronic condition, or if you want to recommend it to a friend that doesn't have a chronic condition. Who was I thinking about the other day that would have liked this book? Basically anybody. If you want to gift it to someone that isn't chronically ill, this would be a good one. Or if maybe somebody that has seen you read her other books, and they're like, oh, I like that book, but I'm not chronically ill. You could say, oh, she has one for people that are not chronically ill. So I still recommend it. I mean, it's so good. But like I said, if you are chronically ill, get the other books. If you're limited on money or anything like that, get the other books instead. How to Be Sick and then how to live well with chronic pain and illness. But yeah, I love her. Check out all her stuff. I do think that she also does other writing online about chronic illness and stuff like that. So you could just Google her name, Toni Berhard, and some of her stuff will come up. But anyways, that's what I've got for you guys today. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.